fugue, in the sense in which I use the term, is literally a prolonged state of dreaming while awake. That is, one acts a dream with every conviction that one is awake, and one actually is awake as far as a bystander can tell. Fugues are often part of the onset of some very serious mental disorders. But anyway, when one is in a fugue, as I am trying to describe it, one believes one is awake, and one acts as if one is awake in many important particulars, and everyone else presumes one is awake. But the relationship to circumambient reality and to the meanings to which things attach from one's past is, to a certain extent, as fundamentally and absolutely suspended as it is when one is asleep.
There it was printed on the invitation. Surprise, you were invited to the wedding.
What people thought was going to be the engagement party wound up being the actual wedding.
I think what was I thinking is the first question a person who starts to examine themselves asks themselves.
I used to be a cool chick.
People devour people. They degrade them. They live off their failing. They set them up to fail. Even when they praise you, they're setting you up to come down for that praise and to become dependent upon a certain form of slavery.
What are you saying, Mr. Perfect?
I was just being rebellious.
I kind of caught on after the first couple of times that she did it, because it's happened more than once, you know. She'd be like...
But it's not me. It's not me to be that way. I was doing it because I was scared, and he realized that.
Herself. Oh, yeah, I knew.
As devil's advocate, I insist we discourage this business of protecting yourself right now, young lady. You stay vulnerable. Put your soul into these kinds of hands. Don't be a diva demanding her own way. Have Kevin's way instead. He really likes being in charge. If you're scared to let me take over, I dare you to stand up for yourself, 'cause I will leave. In fact...
Double dog dare ya!
Why do you think I can't let go?
When the fox hears the rabbit scream, he comes a-running. But not to help.
I don't know. I think that you're scared to love me.
What else was left but the coup de grace of all dares, the sinister?
And that makes me scared to love you. And that makes me scared. Makes me scared to love you.
I triple dog dare ya!
There it was printed on the invitation. Surprise, you were invited to the wedding.
What people thought was going to be the engagement party wound up being the actual wedding.
I don't see how Big Mouth kept this from us.
Big Mouth had no choice. Big Mouth had no choice.
Nobody knows, not our parents.
Weasels.
How did you do it, you know?
She seemed very young.
He was happy that he was able to pull it off.
Nobody knows, not our parents.
I'm growing up. I'm not 4 anymore.
But he also could put her in her place.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with 6 people.
And here you are in your wife beater, laughing in Britney's father's face.
Don't do that.
Like, you know, congratulations, how did you do it? You know, you little snake. And he just kept laughing. He was happy that he was able to pull it off. That he was able to pull it off. Pull it off.
It's a force. It has an autonomy. It can suddenly seize you. It is like a seizure.
Yes.
So, for instance, falling in love at first sight, that is such a case. You see, you have a certain image in yourself without knowing it of the woman, of the woman.
Yes.
Now you see that girl, or at least a good imitation of your type. And instantly you get a seizure, and you're gone.
I found myself made.
Discovered that it was a hell of a mistake.
Why do you think I can't let go?
A case that was an intelligent young woman. She was a very good mind, where one could expect easily that she would see that I am not the parental authority. But she was utterly unable to get out of this delusion. And in such a case, one always has recourse to the dreams. One It is just as if one would ask the unconscious, now what do you say to such a condition? You see, she says of the unconscious, of course I know you are not my father, but I just feel like that. It is like that. I depend upon you. And I say, now we will see what the unconscious says. Now the unconscious produces dreams in which I really assumed a very curious role. You know, she was the little infant. She was sitting on my knees. I held her in my arms. I was a very tender father to the little girl, you know, and more, her dreams became emphatic in that respect, namely that I was a sort of giant, and she is a very little, frail human thing, you know, and quite a little girl in the hands of an enormous being. And the last dream of that series was, I cannot tell you all the dreams, was that it was out in nature. I stood in a field of wheat, an enormous field of wheat that was ripe for harvest. And I was a giant. And I held her in my arm like a baby. And the wind was blowing over that field of wheat. Now, you know, when the wind is blowing over wheat field, these waves in the wheat field. Yes, yes. And with these waves, I swayed like that, putting her as if it were to sleep, you know. And she felt as being in the arms of a god, of the Godhead. Mm-hmm. And I thought, now the harvest is ripe. Yes. And I must tell her. And I told her, you see, what you want and what you project into me, because you are not conscious of it, is you have the idea of a deity. You don't possess. Therefore, you see it in me. Yes. That clicked. She certainly became aware of an entirely heathenish image. Yes. That comes fresh from the archetype. She had not the idea of a Christian God or of an Old Testament Yahweh. It was a heathenish God, you see, a God of nature, of vegetation. He was the wheat himself. He is the spirit of the wheat, the spirit of the wind. And she was in the arms of that Newman. That is the living experience of an archetype. Now that made a tremendous impression upon that girl, and instantly it clicked. She saw what she really was missing, that missing value, that was in the form of a projection in myself and made myself indispensable to her. Yes. And then she saw it is not indispensable, because it is, as the dream says, she is in the arms of that archetypal idea. Now that is a luminous experience, you see. And that is the thing that people are looking for. Yes. An archetypal experience that gives them an incorruptible value. You see, they depend upon other conditions. They depend upon their desires, their ambitions, depend upon other people, because they have no value in themselves. They have nothing in themselves. They are only rational, and they are not in the possession of a treasure that would make them independent. But when that girl can hold that experience, then she doesn't depend anymore. She cannot depend anymore, because that value is in herself. And that is a sort of liberation. Yeah. And that is, of course, makes her complete, you know. Inasmuch as she can realize such a luminous experience, she is able to continue her path, her way, her individuation. The acorn can become an oak, I'm not a donkey.
I feel like I've been missing out on life.
Like what part of life?
Life, like things going on. Like I feel like I'm behind or something.
It's all the partying.
Huh?
It's all the partying.
What are you talking about, all the partying?
That's why you feel that way.
What's that supposed to mean?
Oh, there you are, Peter.
What's that supposed to mean?
What you just did. You'll never do it again. Never.
Would you rather go out or would you rather go watch the movie?
I'd go watch that movie and just drink at home. But what I'm trying to say is, do you ever feel like you... Like, can some people... Have you ever seen Back to the Future?
What people thought was going to be the engagement party wound up being the actual wedding.
Good. How you doing? I'm doing good, man. How you doing? I'm doing great.
He didn't even know.
Nice little surprise. Nice big surprise.
I'm waiting for him to say something, congratulations or something, and he didn't say anything.
You haven't read the invitation yet? No, I just looked at it. You might want to read it. You might want to read it.
And finally, we figured out that he didn't read it, you know, and they told him, well, you might want to go back and read it again.
Yeah, that makes a little difference.
He looked at me, he was like, well, that changes everything. He turned around and walked off.
Don't do that.
When you're old enough, I'll make you a match with someone who's worthy of you. Someone who's brave, gentle, and strong.
I don't want someone brave and gentle and strong. I want him.
Like, okay, I didn't know whether he was mad or happy or...
But how can you let her marry someone like that?
That was the biggest shocker to me.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
But she was utterly unable to get out of this delusion.
They have to confound and confuse and lie love.
This is the key to the kingdom, and this is the town. This is the blind horse that leads you around.
One finds that the individual who has had a schizophrenic illness has not, in the first place, developed the abrupt manifestations of hereditarily determined deterioration in the life processes. Instead, he has stood in a significantly and distinctly difficult position in the social situation in which he has lived.
I can't believe you sucked off that hobo for magic bean.
He was a wizard, Neil.
He has come upon certain situations which were most serious in their negative effect upon his self-esteem.